Hey YouTube, I'll just get right down to it. This is a part 2. Please watch part 1, the video entitled Flat Earthers Save Millions of Lives. This is Flat Earthers Save Millions of Lives, part 2. So I'm just going to get right on to it. I left you guys off. I apologize, I'm having some memory issues with my computer, so hopefully I've got that corrected and I won't get cut off. I don't try to edit anything, folks, so I apologize. You got to watch this in 2 parts. Again, the algorithm's going to hate me, but that's okay. It is another perfect evening here in God's country, and I ain't lying. So let's get right back to it. I was talking about how the globe Earth is the biggest piece of propaganda that we've all been put through. And of course, there's not even really a close second, right? But we're going to get right back to where I was. We were in the middle of the discussion where I was talking about the scientific advancements made by the flat Earth community. And I do want to take a moment to point out that for years and years, for at least 10 years, I've been stating openly online that the scientists will come around and will join the people that are speaking pure truth. Absolutely 100%. Now, how did I know this 10 years ago? How do I know this now? Because, folks, again, truth is just indisputable. And I have told you guys for years, many of these scientists, don't forget these are human beings. They're not going to want to go down in history remembered as buffoons and idiots, okay? And that is absolutely what they're subscribing to. A club full of buffoons and idiots ran by psychopaths at the top. Okay, so I told you guys 10 years ago, the scientists will snap out of the trance. They will follow along behind the people that are speaking poignantly and correctly and walking people out of the cesspool of social engineering and indoctrination and theoretical mind control BS. Okay, I told you guys that 10 years ago. I've said it many times on this channel. You will see scientists come over to reality to save their own reputation. They're not going to want to go down in history as the buffoons, and they're going to understand the buffoonery they're pushing. Now in 2026, we see this happening in real time. Just a few videos ago, I gave you guys the link to that PhD astrophysicist who is now not working in the field, so can speak pure truth. And now you have a PhD astrophysicist openly telling the world the same thing Lucky's been telling you guys for 10 years, that those are all theories, that they're not real, that protons are not real. It is science fiction. Neutrons, science fiction. Atoms, science fiction. Okay? Viruses, science fiction. Gravity, science fiction. Dark matter, science fiction. Warped space-time, science fiction. Dark energy, science fiction. The ever-expanding infinite universe, science fiction. Other planets in space, science fiction. Do you guys not get it? I told you guys 10 years ago, the scientists will come around. They don't have a choice. It's only the very ignorant ones that will not regather themselves, regain control of their own intellectual faculties, and begin speaking the truth. And that's happening now. Again, just like I always tell you guys, they're not going to have a choice. As long as people keep opening their mouth and speaking pure truth. This is why at the beginning of this video, I gave a giant hat tip to the old guard who plowed through the mockery, who just said, listen, I'm just gonna keep speaking pure truth. The old guard in the truth community played a huge role in saving millions of lives and waking up billions of human beings. Okay? So don't ever let any propaganda agent tell you, what has the flat earth ever done for anybody? Yeah, busted the hole wide open into the truth behind theoretical science used as agenda-based propaganda to socially engineer the masses. Okay? It's fully exposed. You either want to come over to the side of the truth. You know, a lot of people. The reason we're seeing such a huge flood of people coming over to the truth now is because that party has gotten bigger, so it's more acceptable. Okay, so now people can open their minds a little easier, and they won't be mocked as much. You're not going to be mocked as much if you start understanding and comprehending the globe earth theoretical science. If you start comprehending it nowadays and you start bringing it up around friends, like, I'm not so sure about this globe earth, boy, have you ever looked into it? Okay, you're not going to get mocked and hated instantly. You'd be banished from families 10 years ago. People would banish you from the family. People's relationships were ruined by speaking truth. Okay, it has massively changed. Again, flat earthers did that. So hat tip to the old guard and to the real flat earthers, okay? Nobody's taken the time to say that. The propaganda agents want to say the opposite. What has flat earth ever done? Woken up billions and saved millions. Now, let's get right back to talking about the scientific advancements. I was explaining the moon one. I know a lot of my listeners are like, man, Lucky, you've said this before. I saw the moon episode a year ago, man. You were just talking about the moon. Maybe it's 2 years ago. I don't know. Okay, yes, I do. But there's often kind of a new group of people hanging around my channel and new folks. And so I do want to communicate some of that stuff again. And I am, making a rebuttal right now to that statement. What did flat earth ever do for anybody? We wasted 10 years of our lives. Right. So let's talk about the scientific advancements. We all know flat earthers, clearly plenty of observations and video, plenty to show the public that the moon is indeed in our atmosphere. The public wouldn't accept it, called us dumb, called us ignorant. Why are you guys wasting your time? They're so stupid, you conspiracy theorists. And then mainstream science was forced to come out, claim it as their discovery. This is how they work. It's called damage control. They can't have the masses figuring out that, hey, that crazy group of people that say the globe is not real, keeps advancing science. They keep making these scientific discoveries. Okay, it's called damage control. Finally, enough quantity of people, enough of the old guard was shouting continuously, showing videos, showing people, look, you can see the blue skies behind the moon. It's clearly in our atmosphere. Then science comes out, big announcement. Scientists have discovered the moon is in our atmosphere. Took them 5 years, but they finally caught up. Like Lucky always told you, science has no choice but to be real and follow truth if we force them to. And people need to stop going, well, these people must be dumb. And they need to learn the science, and we can all correct it as human beings. And that's what we're seeing. It's just a very, very slow process, folks. So the moon one, the moon being in our atmosphere was really fascinating to me. The blinded masses don't even think that the media and the powers that be and the academia and science, they don't even think these people pay any attention to us crazy flat earthers when we're the ones guiding the narrative on television. That's, again, one of the ways that you get confirmation over the years that what we're doing is right when they're continuously conflicting and reacting to things that we say. I mean, I've made differences here locally. I've had signs taken down. We know this, okay? Sorry, hang on just a second. I have to deal with this cat. Hey, get out. That's my cat Jingles. Hey, yeah, we saved him. He was just a little thing. Found him in the field. He cried to me, come and jump in my hand, and I had no choice but to save his ass. Now he's this big, and anyway. What the hell was I talking about before I started chasing my cat? All right, the moon being in our atmosphere. Da, 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 da. Oh yeah. Okay, yeah, the moon being in our atmosphere, science catching up. Oh, I mean, I told you guys for years they would catch up. Of course, there is only one truth, folks. There's not multiple truth. Truth is not a multiple choice. There's only one truth. This channel and me online has always been about the same thing, speaking the truth. So it was easy to tell you 10 years ago, listen, the scientists will catch up. I mean, it's going to be a slow process because they face so much opposition. They are so incentivized to not speak clearly. They have to speak in riddles and try to fool people, as we've witnessed with that Professor Parks dude, right? He just doesn't have it in him. He will wander through a maze of deception to get to like I asked him the one question, is there any proof scientifically that the earth is a globe? Is it a fact? And he said, no, of course not. But we know now it's true because we went to space on TV and proved it. Okay? Just like Lucky has always told you, there is no proof of the globe other than your television. He said the same thing. But I can ask the question real quickly, like, hey, is a globe proven scientifically? It took him a half an hour to answer the question. And the conclusion to his speech was, so no, there is no scientific proof of any globe, but we know that it's real because we went to space. Okay, that's exactly what I have been saying, right? We know it's a globe because we saw it on TV, right? The scientists have the same. This is why people go, you think you're smarter than a scientist. No, the scientists fell for the television programming just like you did, folks. And they admit it, okay? Just if they still believe it, it doesn't mean that it's correct. They're still telling you the same thing. No, there's no scientific proof of a globe. It's a theoretical mess. But we went to space and proved it. And that was, of course, where? On television. Who provided it? The shadow government, the one owned and controlled by the people that own and control this new world. Okay? No one's ever been to space, folks. You can't leave the contained system. We all know this. We have real science. And this is why the scientists are starting to now go, shit, we have no choice. These guys have just poked a massive hole in our theoretical science, and they're actually using demonstrable science and reality to discover where they live. We don't have any choice. I either go down in history as being just a butt-fucked, fiddle-fucked, wackadoodle, crazy guy that thought I was a scientist, or I could just come over to the truth and we can get on with discovering things, right? So the scientists, once they retire, they're not relying on a paycheck and all this. They're coming out of the woodwork now and saying, yes, all that stuff's theoretical. It's fairy tale fabricated fiction, okay? And of course, I can promise you again, over the next 10 years, you'll see a ton more of them, okay? The ones that are intelligent. They're not going to just let themselves go down in history being a total buffoon, okay? They're going to come over to the side of truth and learn how to speak truth and stop being so deceptive. Stop taking 45 minutes to explain. Why does it take the PhD astrophysicists that I just spoke of, why did it take them 35 to 40 minutes to say, no, there's no proof of the globe Earth, but we saw it on TV? Why does it take him that? Because he's going to weave through a path of deception to filter out all of the weak and gullible minds that will never comprehend what he said enough to hear his conclusion. This is how they do it. It's science fiction. It's a religion, and they want you in the religion really bad. And it's self-induced. It's self-programmed into these guys. Somebody who's a PhD astrophysicist. In his indoctrination and in his programming, it's all built in for him to be a recruitment officer for that religion, to drag other people in. This is why they can't answer a question directly when they don't like the answer to the question. But he knew when I asked the question that I'm intelligent enough and that I will be able to comprehend everything he says, that I will just call him out and correct him. So he somehow tried to find a way to say, no, there's no proof of the globe earth, but we saw it on television, without it sounding like what I just said. But it just takes him a half an hour to say the same thing. And then he hopes and prays, and it does work, that he filtered out 80% of the folks. They'll never comprehend his paragraph. Therefore, they will never hear him say there's no proof of any globe earth except for the television show called Outer Space. Okay? That's how it works. And we've put up with that shit for way too long. And this is why people are so easily manipulated and so easily deceived. More scientific advancements. That was a huge scientific advancement. And of course, the mental midgets can't even realize that. That was a huge scientific advancement, folks. To get Robert Parks, PhD, to admit that the globe earth is not a scientific fact, but it's a television show. To get him to admit that publicly is a fucking scientific advancement. Do you get that? And it's a huge one. It's a giant leap for mankind. Do you understand that? Very few probably understand that. Those are giant leaps, and it's tricky to get these people to speak the truth because of the way that they were trained for recruitment. They were trained to play their role in the narrative. I explained to you clearly with the geologists how they can do that for an entire career without ever figuring out that that's what they're doing. Geologists are a great example because people can understand, right? They don't know shit about those rocks. They were educated by an indoctrination system, and they were told, I'll repeat what I said again, the geologist said these rocks shouldn't have been there. Now, what did he mean? He meant that he was given a set of parameters and a historical narrative to work with, just like doctors are given diagnoses to work with. You get it. Now, he is not allowed to, the geologist is not going to stray from the parameters that he was told to work with. Therefore, any science that he thinks he's doing is 1,000,000% biased by theoretical science that was never proven. Then they take it a step further, folks. This is why so many remain confused, even scientists. Why would a PhD ask Lucky, you think it's cross sciences? Because it's so complex that it confuses them, okay? The geologist who then runs his career coming up with theoretical reasons why these rocks are where they're not supposed to be, and his theoretical reasons fit the heliocentric model and the false historical narrative, he has then advanced that. Now they take it a third step and say, and then they use that geologist's work that was all based upon this theoretical hypothesis that we know is wrong and a historical narrative that we, of course, know is vastly wrong, not even close. Last week's history on your television wasn't even close, okay? None of our historical timeline is even close. So once he has done that and taken his rocks and now manipulated them into the theoretical, hypothetical shit that he was forced to work with, they then take his conclusion, and the mental midgets now use his conclusion as more evidence of those theories. This is literally how it's been woven together. They will then tell you, of course, the heliocentric model is correct. I mean, the geologists have dated this mountain to 4 billion years old. You see how this works, folks? That is truly the cesspool of propaganda that these people are wading through, and why it is so complex for people to snap out of the trance. Scientists can't be wrong. You do understand that that geologist that I'm now speaking of in metaphorical terms to make a point. He did everything he thought was correct. No, but he was only like a second generation or maybe a first generation New World Order baby, okay? The New World Order is brand new. It started in the late 1800s. So when you want to talk about a scientist that retired in like 64, right? Or 69 or 72, this guy retired a long time ago that I'm speaking of. He really thought the earth was a ball because that's what he was indoctrinated to think. So he wasn't in on anything. However, they will then take the work of somebody like that, who everything that he's claiming about his discoveries is completely wrong, completely inverted and biased science based on the heliocentric model and a faulty timeline. If his science doesn't line up with the heliocentric model and the false timeline, it is scrapped because that's theoretical science, not real science where it's scrapped if it disagrees with experiment. His science has to be scrapped if it doesn't fit the agenda. So now, after he reverse engineers all kinds of science about dating a mountain, and he's made it fit the heliocentric model, and he's made it fit the false historical narrative. Now they can take his findings and say, well, you're so dumb, Lucky. I mean, this geologist proved the heliocentric model. He dated the mountain to be 4 billion years old. Lucky, you're so dumb. And nobody can figure out that he was tricked into it. And the scientist himself had no idea. He was tricked into it. And how did they trick him into it? By using lots of words like body of work. It's a body of work. That work's already been done. I told you guys before, nobody ever probably even mentioned or considered calling the Earth a globe before 1875 or 1880. I doubt it was ever considered, and that any history written before that claiming to is for one reason and one reason only. Because I can say this till I'm blue in the face. There is no science to support the globe Earth. It has always counted on every single person involved with the deception, every scientist, because they're taught their entire life this is what it is. Every single one of them, including Rob Parks, PhD, told me the same thing. We've always known. There's no reason to look into the globe and try to prove it. We've always known it's a globe. Who's always known it's a globe? We. What are you talking about? No one ever proved it. It's a body of work. Right. Fall for that shit, folks. Trust the science. No, folks, it's 2026. If you want, if you need to learn the science, not trust it, learn it. Okay. So, scientific advancements by the flat earthers. I would say, again, there's been many that are just absolutely crushingly huge that will never get acknowledged. I mean, crushingly huge advancements made by flat earthers in the scientific world. Let's get right into one of the very, very big ones. And again, I like talking about what I call the doublespeak of the elite and how brilliant these guys are with propaganda, and how, just again, shout out RV Truth, like he says, they do treat human beings as if they have childlike minds because they have placed humanity into this state of psychosis, which creates these childlike minds that are so easily misled. And I want to give you the best example of damage control from the scientific community, how they struggled to keep up with the things that flat earthers were proving, because flat earthers are real scientists that are interested in demonstrable science and are out doing experiments, demonstrable experiments, repeatable, testable. You know, you get it. The scientific method, for any of y'all who've ever heard of it, okay, that's what will lead you to the truth about this realm. Testable, repeatable, demonstrable science. In reality, no theories needed. Lose all your theories and you'll know where you live. It's that simple. Take away all the theoretical science from the science that we know, and you are left with the pure truth, period. No human being has to prove anything to you. Science does it for you. Just remove your theoretical beliefs and you're back at the truth. It's really that simple, folks. But anyway, one of the biggest, most one of the hugest, I mean, folks, this is beyond huge. One of the biggest things that flat earthers proved, and of course now science was forced to claim this as their own and to go along with us because it's pure truth. One of the very first things that flat earthers proved and made the biggest scientific advancement, the biggest change to science in all of modern history was done by flat earthers when we proved that no human will ever see curvature and no human has ever seen curvature, and that you cannot see curvature from any height that we can achieve with any mechanism here on Earth. We obviously man-made flight, combustion flight, 90 to 95,000 feet is as high as we can reach. And then when we talk about balloons and helium technology and that sort of stuff, 160,000 feet, 180,000 feet maybe. But we've all seen the footage. We started sending up balloons. Even globe earthers were sending up balloons, attempting to prove their wackadoodle theories. And of course, you can see for yourself that at 160,000 feet, there's no curvature. So this was a massive, massive advancement for modern science. Now we can openly state what we were already telling people. We were already telling people there is no curvature here on Earth. Give me a break. We have physics to prove. We have demonstrable physics, demonstrable science to prove that there is no curvature here on Earth. Yeah, but we have these beliefs. We have these theories, man. Okay, forget it. We have proof. So drop your theories. There's no debate, folks. There's only people's unwillingness to educate themselves. That's it. That's all we're left with, is waking up more and more and more and more people to what theoretical science is and what its purpose was and what it's accomplished. Okay, flat earthers have accomplished scientifically far more than any theoretical science has ever accomplished. Period. Okay, because we make real scientific advancements. So flat earthers prove there's no visible curvature. No one's ever going to see curvature. No one's ever seen curvature. You're never going to see curvature. You just have to believe in it. How did we know you're never going to see curvature? How did a guy like Lucky know? Like 10 years ago? See, I don't need the same methods everyone else does. I actually just stand on rock solid science. Rock solid science. The humans have been taught to not trust the science. They've been taught that theoretical science is more viable than rock solid science. But I've said this for years. This is why I tell people, forget about the space fakery and all that. You don't need any of that. They want you arguing the moon landing was fake, the moon landing was real. This is reconfirming that there's a place called outer space. That's all the reason they let the masses argue about the moon landing. They're just making it doesn't matter. They don't care if you think they landed on the moon. That's why they made it. They made very few attempts to make it look real. We know it's fake. They know it's fake. They know we're going to sit around and say it's fake. They know other people are going to say it's not fake. All these conversations are doing is confirming that there could be a place called outer space. This is NASA's Space Division's only objective, is to pretend the globe Earth could be real. Most people don't know very much about the globe Earth, so they don't understand that it's entirely dependent on a belief in the infinite universe in outer space, which is a theoretical belief. Never prove it. So all these people say, well, we got to argue, no, that rocket's real. No, that's fake. No, we don't need any of that. We have real, pure science and logic and reason. Logic and reason and critical thought and pure science tell you unequivocally 1,000,000% that nobody can travel using the heliocentric theory. Can't be done. Okay? So while you mental midgets want to sit around and argue about whether something is fake or not, we don't need that. We have science. This is why I like to speak pure truth. We don't need to discuss whether or not the ISS is fake. Folks, we know there's nobody living in outer space because it disagrees with experiment. We know this. I don't care how many people try to twist your beliefs, because that's all it is. That's all outer space is. Outer space was made up because it had to exist to pretend the Earth could be a ball. People can't wrap their head around this. The biggest scientific advancement made in years and years by any scientist was the fact that flat earthers proved that no human being will ever see curvature. Now, Neil deGrasse Tyson was immediately sent on tour to do damage control, and he spent 5 or 6 years on the road doing video spots and concerts. The guy was doing arena tours, basically. I don't know if you guys know this. He was on the road for years doing damage control and correcting the science, adjusting the science to blend with what the flat earthers have proven and to claim it, to make it look like his, mainstream science figured this out. Don't listen to them stupid flat earthers. But the most compelling, so for those of you who don't know, Neil deGrasse Tyson, famous astrophysicist, basically a spokesperson for mainstream science, a propaganda agent, was on the road doing a tour, propaganda tour, doing damage control because flat earthers showed up and proved that nobody's ever seen curvature and that we can't see curvature from 150,000 feet. There is no curvature here on Earth. It simply doesn't exist. It's just in your mind where it's been implanted. So this was easily proven. So they had to go on the road and do damage control and make it look like this is their idea. They go out and they act like they're trying to teach their audience that you can't see curvature anymore. Even though before the flat earth movement, they were lying to you and showing you the curvature of the earth on television at 75,000 feet. You still have members of the blinded masses. I just had a guy a couple days ago in a comment thread saying, we've seen the curvature of the earth out of a U-2 spy plane at 75,000 feet. What he's referring to is a propaganda show called Mythbusters, where they have a couple guys come on and program you. Sorry, it's called television programming. So in a few years before flat earthers proved there's no curvature on Earth, Mythbusters had taken you up in a U-2 spy plane at 75,000 feet and used a GoPro lens, which is, round, and it makes everything distort. And they showed the Earth. And here's the big kicker. Not only did they show the Earth as being a big ball, the guy from Mythbusters said, whoa, you can see the curvature of Earth. It's beautiful. This later, that's very significant, even though the blinded masses are not competent enough to understand what they're seeing there. It's very significant because it's proof that they'll come on television and flat out lie to you. And it's proof that those are propaganda channels. And I mean, the guy's literally telling you, look, folks, we can see the curvature of Earth. It's beautiful. What does that tell you? It tells you that entire episode of Mythbusters, all of the stuff that they pretend is science and substance, none of that is relevant. It's a propaganda show to show you the curvature of Earth so that you can continue to be lost and manipulated easily. It's that simple. So 75,000 feet, they're showing you the curvature. Then flat earthers prove nobody's ever seen curvature. It doesn't exist. And we can send a balloon up as high as it will go, 150, 160,000 feet, still no curvature. Where's the curvature? So the science community goes into a panic. Wait a minute. These guys are proving that there's no curvature on Earth. What are we going to do? So they send Neil deGrasse Tyson out on the road to do damage control, and he gives the famous speech, "You do not see curvature if you're 2 millimeters above this beach ball. That stuff is flat." Just incredibly brilliant propaganda, and the masses can't see it. I mean, literally, again, when RV Truth says they treat the human mind as if it's childlike, you can't come up with a better example than Neil deGrasse Tyson going on tour to tell everybody in every city, you can't see curvature if you're 2 millimeters above this beach ball. The masses have no clue what he just said. They just go, wow, he's hilarious. Oh, he's so smart. They literally can't comprehend what he just said and how much on that tour he changed mainstream science to catch up, because it's not even called catching up. We proved there's no curvature. Now he has to do damage control. Now, the people that he's preaching to have no idea that the flat earthers have proven that there is no curvature even at 160,000 feet. They have no clue. They're told flat earthers are dumb meth heads living in their mama's basement. They don't understand. Okay? So they're falling for this shit. And what he's doing is he's telling you that you can't see curvature from 160,000 feet. He even went on to say that you can't see curvature from the ISS, even though they show you footage from the ISS on your television showing you curvature. But Neil deGrasse Tyson went on TV and gave specifics and said, you can't see curvature from 2 millimeters above this beach ball. Now, he is speaking to the children. He is propagandizing these childlike minds. You have to understand this. Here's the biggest significant way that I can prove to you, for those of you with your intellectual faculties intact that understand how propaganda works, you're going to go, you're right, Lucky. That is the effect he achieved. It was the most important thing of what he did was when he said, that stuff is flat. That was not for the flat earthers. That was for the childlike minds. And they took it hook, line, and sinker, because that's all they heard, because they don't understand the science they believe in. So they had no idea that Neil deGrasse Tyson just changed mainstream science extremely. Mainstream science was just telling you a couple years ago that if you could go to 75,000 feet, you would see the curvature. They were on television lying to you, telling you that curvature was visible from 75,000 feet. After we proved that it wasn't, Neil deGrasse Tyson had to come out and say, you're not going to see it from 160,000 feet. You're not going to see it from 250,000 feet. And because you're only 2 millimeters above this beach ball. What he was doing was massively changing the propaganda and everything mainstream science had told everybody for 100 years. Massive change to science caused by flat earthers, and the blinded globe believers are unaware that a change in their belief even occurred, because he is so slick. All Neil deGrasse Tyson did was claim it as his idea that no human being's ever going to see curvature. And he explained it clearly to those who can think, but the childlike minds cannot think. So the only thing that the childlike minds heard was Neil going, that stuff is flat. Why did he do that? So that when flat earthers started talking about the scientific significance of what he just said, every dumbed down, indoctrinated person that lives their life by propaganda heard what they wanted to hear from Neil deGrasse Tyson. He's a master of propagandizing these childlike minds. He knows how to manipulate you. It's very easy to manipulate people that are living in a false reality. These people don't have to try hard. So he lays down that stuff is flat, specifically so when flat earthers said, wow, what a significant change to mainstream science he just made, the dumbed down masses go, flat earthers think that Neil deGrasse Tyson just said the earth is flat because he said that stuff is flat. They're so dumb. Flat earthers are so dumb. What he meant was you can't see curvature from a certain height, dude. Yeah, he did that so that you would say that. And it's so blatantly and clearly obvious. This is why it's so disgusting to watch these dirtbags like Neil deGrasse Tyson do such intentional harm to our loved ones. It's disgusting. And back then, way back then, boy, would he be defended. I really pissed a dude off by telling him, Neil deGrasse Tyson, the biggest propaganda agent of modern times. Boy, did he get pissed. Are you kidding me? That guy's so intelligent. He set such a great example for our children. I had to back off because this guy was ready to box over it. And I'm like, oh my God. People are just so easily manipulated. And that, folks, if you've ever wondered why he said that stuff is flat, that is purely put into the show for the blinded masses and the childlike minds. That's all they got from it. They have no fucking idea that he was making a massive change to mainstream science with his speech, smacking on the beast ball. They have no idea. What kind of change was he making? He wasn't really making a change. We had already proven this. But they can't have the masses getting their science from flat earthers now, can they? So Neil deGrasse Tyson was literally sent on tour to claim the advancement in science. What is the advancement? The advancement is that no human being's ever going to see curvature. Folks, none of you all are ever going to 150,000 feet. None of you all are ever going to hit 100,000 feet. None of you. None of you. No human being. It's not going to happen, folks. It's just not going to happen. You can watch as many television shows as you want. It's never coming. It's never going to happen. You're not going to go to 150,000 feet. And Neil deGrasse Tyson was forced to go on the road and tell as many of the childlike minds as he possibly could get to that, no, you're never going to see curvature, even can't see it from the ISS. They had to do that, folks, because we were simply showing proof of that. They had to do that. So for some doofus to say, what has flat earthers ever accomplished? Okay, this absolute horseshit propaganda by weak, it's just stupidity, folks. Okay, flat earthers made the most significant change to modern science in all of history. I mean, in modern history. The flat earthers made the most significant change to the heliocentric theoretical model ever, since it was invented. And that is to finally admit to humans that you're never going to see curvature. And that's what Neil deGrasse Tyson was forced to do. And nobody knows that. All the people that follow mainstream science, this is why I always tell you, they don't comprehend their belief. I never saw a Glober speak about that speech with Neil deGrasse Tyson that comprehended what he said. All they all said was, you stupid flat earthers think that he's saying that he thinks the earth is flat because he said that stuff is flat. And of course, that wasn't to throw off flat earthers. We study. We understand what he's doing. We know he's propaganda. We understand why he's doing that. That's for the childlike minds so that they can associate that with why the flat earthers are talking about the significance of his propaganda speech. Because it was extremely significant. It was the largest change to the heliocentric model in modern history. Yep. I mean, right? Prior to us forcing Neil deGrasse Tyson to go on the road, every human being, all the masses, were told you could see curvature from 75,000 feet. That's a massive change. Then you were told by Neil deGrasse Tyson you can't see it from 250,000 feet, the ISS, supposedly, right? Supposedly, as you're told that there's people on that light in the sky at 250,000 feet. Another great story. Man, as much as that's cost, they must have produced a lot of brilliant science out of that experiment so far. Yeah. What did we get? Nothing but propaganda. That's weird. Yeah, that is weird. Gas could be $1 a gallon if we didn't spend all our money on propaganda that's used to destroy us. I don't know if anyone's ever thought of that, but anyway, gas could be $0.25 a gallon. But anyway, I wanted that's why I made a part 2, because I didn't get to the Neil deGrasse Tyson thing. That is an extremely significant achievement for the real sitific movement. It is those kind of scientific advancements that have gotten us from step 1 over the 13 years, 12 years. I'm terrible with time, folks. Best thing I can do is use the age of my son. Okay, I've been a little over 12 years since I looked into the globe, maybe 13, somewhere in there, going by my son's age, right? So 12 to 13 years. I'm trying not to tell a fish story. Sometimes you hear me go, 20 years! Okay, well, I've been studying different things my whole life. I took a look at the globe about 13 years ago, 12 to 13 years. So, I've seen a lot. But I just felt it was important for me to do this part two because I don't think I've ever heard anybody come out and really talk about the significance of that. It wasn't just a speech, folks, it was a tour. For those of you who don't know, that dude had to spend like 5 or 6 years on the road spewing propaganda live to people to combat the real science being exposed by flat earthers. Okay. And finally, he had to concede, and they came up with the most slickest, craftiest way to concede and to adopt the flat earth science that we had brought to the table and to claim it as their own, but not let the childlike minds know what's going on. They just sent them, it was just confusion to them. All the people in the audience, they were just confused by the beach ball speech. They just thought it was cool. And then they laughed when he said, that stuff is flat. And then again, I've explained to you why that's in there. That's for the dummies, not for the flat earthers, right? That's for people to have something to grab when they hear a flat earther like me trying to explain to you how significant that speech was by Neil deGrasse Tyson. 1,000,000% damage control, adjusting science again, because remember, the globe earth is not real, it's theoretical, so they can change their numbers anytime they want. This is what's so dumb about people continuously trying to say, you don't understand what a theory is. In science, theories are real. That's no. If they were real, we would never be able to change them. There are theories. They're made up. That's why they change them all the time. It's not scientific advancement. It's reverse engineered damage control. Wake the fuck up, okay? So Neil deGrasse Tyson was doing damage control and was forced to change the mainstream scientific stance from curvature is viewable at 75,000 feet, which was a lie. They already knew it wasn't, folks. This is the scientists lying to you. The ones you guys say, oh, why would they lie? This is the people that you think are scientists. Neil deGrasse Tyson is an actor. He's a propaganda actor. But the masses believe he's intelligent and he's smart. This has always worked. Einstein, actor, reading his cue cards. You're telling me you'll come up with the greatest theory of mankind to save a failing model and you don't even know your theory? He stood up there and talked about his theory from cue cards. Give me a break. I'm shooting from the hip right now. If I invented the world's greatest theory, you don't think I could sit here and ramble it? Give me a break. Humanity's so stupid. It's worked for years. Einstein, an actor, pushing an agenda. Neil deGrasse Tyson, an actor, pushing an agenda. Flat earthers, changing science, advancing science, saving humanity, changing the world, one person at a time. Ask yourself, who can I help today? And most importantly, get out there and do it. It's going to be another great day.